What's going on, everybody? It's Thursday, and BobbyFi here with Sheets. We don't have a whole lot to talk about today, but we want to stay consistent. We've gotten some messages from some people. I know there's not a ton of people watching these videos. We don't have the DFS content. We did do a video that I think you guys will like on just like an intro to DFS MLB video, so check that out. I also think I'm going to start streaming my poker sessions because that's about the most interesting thing I've got going on right now. Made a couple deep runs, made some money yesterday. Didn't quite hit the big one like I was hoping for, but it's been fun to be back in the mix a little bit. And yeah, with that, I mean, I just want to sort of keep you guys updated. Sheets, what's going on in your world?
Yeah, so again, just I didn't play poker last night. We had something much more important going on. We had Mahjong night at the Sheets household. Because my daughter's back, so we got 4 now, and so we were playing Mahjong, and who won? My daughter won, actually. And Mahjong's rough, man. It's a tough game. It's a kind of a mixture between, I guess, gin and, well, I shouldn't say dominoes, just because the tiles you use look like dominoes, but it's definitely a gin-related thing where 4 people play against each other. You got to make certain hands, and you have to know what people are going for and stuff like that. And it's my wife plays with her friends frequently, and so we did that last night. So I didn't play last night. We were talking about maybe playing tonight and maybe streaming. I got to figure out if I do it, how I want to do it. Like if I want to do it on my Twitch channel, if I want to do it like live through your YouTube channel. I mean, again, I don't know how I want to do it. Whatever. I mean, whatever it is. Nobody's watching, that's fine too. Like, listen, when Poker X Factor was finally, we were kind of done with Poker X Factor, I was like doing videos with literally just myself. I mean, I was on there just kind of like narrating through everything, and I looked at it, was like literally 0 people watching. I'm like, oh, whatever. So I just kept doing it. Whatever, who cares?
Yeah.
So there's a DFS related poker thing that we could play tonight. There's like the normal Poker Stars home game that I've been kind of playing that we could play tonight if I decide to play. And there's also ACR that we could play. But yeah, I mean, look, whatever you guys want us to do, if we're around, I mean, we'll certainly do it. But we talked a little bit off air about what we think is going to happen with sports, and I think Bobby and I are both kind of on the same page. Is that I think in some form you will see NBA. You know what I mean? Let's say, well, you'll see NBA before the football season starts. I do think they'll figure out some way. I think it's going to end up being more creative than standard. For example, like they could, let's just say it's like March 26th right now. Let's say that in a month, for example, or a month and a half, they say, okay, we can play basketball without fans, for example. I think that's the first thing they would do is go back to basketball without fans. And I don't think that they're going to get through 82 games or even, I think they'd be content with how many games have been played right now? Have been 50?
No, more than that. We got 60. What are there? I think there's like
that many?
18 games left. So 60.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be more creative than standard. I don't think they're going to just try to jam in the 82 games and just for playoff whatchamacallit integrity. What I think, and again, this could be crazy, but I'm still on board with my idea of maybe playing like 5 games when they come back. Okay. It could partially serve as like a preseason to get them back in shape, right? But whatever it is, 5 games, it counts. But what it's going to be doing is you'll end up being seeded, and everybody will make the playoffs, and they'll figure out some way, you know what I mean, like to make that work. But the NBA is the marketing genius of our generation, right? So they'll figure out a way to make it as the best way that's possible. That I promise you. And I don't know exactly what that'll look like, but that is my prediction. And the other thing I will say is that what's getting more traction, at least in my head, was what seemed to be kind of an obscene thing to predict like a week or so ago, which I told you about off air the other day, Bobby, was that Bill James came on and he on his Twitter page just like a week ago when it looked like the world was coming to an end the next day. He said, I wonder where everybody thinks about when the first baseball game will be. I'm predicting May 15th. And he basically just got just wrecked online for that. Like how much you want to bet, what's your max, whatever it is. So, look, for me, I'm living in the teeth of the zone, so to speak. Like I live in New York, which has just become the epicenter of the universe, apparently, with this thing. So it's for me, it's just kind of hard to see a sporting event in my future. You know what I mean? So But Bill James is a smart freaking dude, and I do think that when things start to come back, it's going to come, in the places that can handle it the best, and the places. I don't think it's like the government, the country is going to say switch on, switch off. I think that that communities are a little bit different, and some people can handle it more, but you can't like have the St. Louis Cardinals play without the Yankees playing. You know what I mean? So I think that baseball, because they could do it without fans, and if they could do it without fans, I don't know. I think that's the way they would ease back in, is to start without fans. But I'll tell you, and this is, I wonder your opinion on this. Like, so for me, like if Trump and the New York State governor and everybody else on the face of the earth told me, you know what, we've turned the corner, you could totally all go out now, I'm not going anywhere. You know what I mean? Like you can tell me all you want. It's going to take me a while, regardless of what, you know what I mean, to get to become normal again, or even something, a semblance of it. I mean, they told me, you know what, in our opinion, it's safe for you to go see the Knicks play the Lakers tomorrow, and offered me free tickets, I would laugh. You know what I mean? Like, so just because, for the same reason, just because remember at the very beginning, before the government, before everybody flat out told you to stay home, that didn't mean that we couldn't put our own opinion on it also. You know what I mean? Like, we're like, listen, I don't want to hear it. We're staying home. So likewise, if they come back and say, you know what, all clear, that doesn't mean my behavior is going to automatically go back to the way it used to be. You know,
you can't get over that. Like, for me, I can't get over the simple fact that cruise ship showed 30 days after there was people on there, and even in cabins where people didn't have it, that it was living on the surface 30 days later. That's a scary thought. You know what I mean? That doesn't make you feel like you just want to get right back out there the second you can, because there are still people out there touching things and doing things. Just, I'm not one of them.
No.
I'm not expecting that to change, unfortunately, anytime soon. So we got to try and make the most of it. That's why, I'm sort of locking more into playing a little more poker. I do think as far as the NBA is concerned, my personal take is that it's the perfect opportunity to try something like they've been talking about doing. I think whenever they do come back, you have the perfect situation where you make X number of teams, and then everybody else who is technically in playoff contention gets to play a round robin type of thing, something like that. That'll end up getting your last, let's say somewhere, maybe you'll do it for the 7 and try and play for the 7 and 8 seed. Maybe it'll be as high as the 5 seed.
There's another way to do it. Now, I didn't think about how the numbers would play out, but you could without a lot of aggravation or without complaints, you could just say that the people who made the playoffs are everybody who was not mathematically eliminated already. Yeah.
But why would you have to do that when you should reward the teams that were better? I don't think it's right to.
Well, you could seed them better.
Yeah, but instead of seeding and instead of having one game, I think you do just a one-man game thing between all the teams that are out on the outside, and then you play out the playoffs. And maybe instead of the first 2 rounds, maybe you play 2 out of 3 and then 3 out of 5, and something like that, because it is going to start creeping into later and later in the year, depending on. I mean, let's just say it was middle of June when it happened. That's a lot more basketball. That's like 2 months more basketball. I don't think we're getting into September with basketball. And I just think if it goes any later than that, you're going to have to do something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to share one other thing again, only because I brought it up before, and I just, the only reason I haven't done it, I haven't quite figured out how I want to do it yet, but I'll talk this out with you, and I'll talk it out with whoever's listening too, is I was thinking of doing something related to horse racing, and this was my logic, and this is what I was thinking about. So one of the books that kind of I really liked in poker when I first started was the Sklansky book, Tournament Poker or whatever it was. Yeah. And the part of it which intrigued me was there was a chapter where he basically taught this girl who never played poker before how to play and how to get into the World Series. And basically what he did was he set up an all-in or fold strategy that, just kind of would just be enough for her. And the idea for me is I would almost rather, like if someone asked me how to play poker or to teach them poker, in some sense, I would almost rather have a complete beginner who's doesn't know the rules, as opposed to someone who's developed a lot of bad habits over the years. You know what I mean? With a lot of, preconceived notions and things like that. And whenever I think of how to teach people horse racing, I think similarly, because horse racing is a type of gambling that there's a lot of preconceived notions about how to play and what's relevant and what isn't. So on the one hand, I think about, if I were going to teach someone how to do horse racing, would it be someone who's just a total newbie to gambling, nobody knew anything? But I thought more about it, and I do think that the DFS player and the poker player is uniquely qualified to be a beginner as far as like someone that I would be able to teach how to do horse racing really well. Because, I mean, in a perfect world, the person would be an expert DFS player, an expert poker player who's never done horse racing. Because what good DFS players and good poker players can do is, number one, not be results oriented, and number two, kind of balance ownership and risk and things like that. Like if I were to explain to a DFS player how I could equate 3 horses similarly, yet one of them is going to be 8-1 and the other one is going to be 3-1, the DFS player would know the benefit of playing the 8-1 over the 3-1, even if the 8-1 guy had a little less chance to win than 3-1 guy. So if I had a person who was at least adept enough with risk taking with respect to either DFS or poker, and I could teach them kind of like the ins and outs of how to actually handicap horse racing, I think their knowledge of how to gamble in general, and and just knowing that it's not just who's the most likely to win, it's who's the most likely to win given the odds you're being afforded, or given the ownership level, to turn a phrase, that you're being afforded, and things like that. So I'm actually thinking of doing something for either now, whenever, something like horse racing for DFS players, or horse racing for, and I think that's where our audience is going to be once we get back rolling again, is going to be mostly DFS players with some poker, right? So I think I am going to think about how to do that. Maybe horse racing for DFS players instead of like horse racing just for everybody. So I think there is a certain degree of knowledge of risk taking that's unique to DFS players that I think they would actually benefit from it.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, man. I like that idea a lot. I think that's cool.
So that's the other thing I'm just kind of thinking about, since you asked me what I'm up to.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it. There we go. All right, man. Well, hey, we just want to do a quick one today and get out of there. I just want to mention one weird, like I'll try and find like one weird coronavirus story every day.
Go for it.
This one was really weird, but it's pretty big story. This woman who coughed on the food.
This is the story that everybody was texting me about this weekend.
Is that my computer?
DJ.
Yeah, it's yours, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. So basically, this woman went to a grocery store and intentionally started coughing on all the food.
Are you kidding me?
They had to throw away $35,000 of food because she was coughing. That she was intentionally going around coughing on all of it.
This is like an actual thing that happened, like near you?
It's a head story on CNN right now.
Okay.
It's a massive story. It's like a crazy thing. She's obviously getting arrested. I hope she gets put away for a very long time. This is a very disturbing.
Well, they're considered violative of the terrorist act, by the way.
That is a terrorist act. It's absolutely a terrorist act. Even if you don't know if you have it, if you're doing it intentionally and that can be proven, then it's definitely a terrorist act. There's no question. That's what terrorism is. That's insanity, guys. Like, this is another reason why you don't know who's done what or what people are doing out there. Just don't touch anything. If you insist on being outside, don't touch anything. Don't touch anyone.
And here's the other thing I will say. And again, I go into different. I spoke to a basketball coach, a friend of mine, who's I was talking to him today about stuff, and he was saying, "Man, your Twitter's like everywhere." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Sometimes it seems like you're being such a sensitive, like person appealing to whatever. Next, you're being like some sarcastic fuck and talking about something else." Yeah, well, that's my personality. That's what Twitter really is. So I did want to share something that I posted, and this is something you can really think about. Like, if let's just say that you God forbid you contracted the coronavirus tomorrow. Okay. And let's say that the United States had this whole like tracking system, whatever it is, where if you test positive, you've got to sit with someone and explain all the people you've been in contact with and in what form over the last 2 weeks. Now put yourself in that position where you now have to think back over the last 2 weeks of all the decisions you made with respect to all the people you've seen, all the stuff you've done, all the people you've exposed to yourself, and think, would you be happy with yourself if you had to have that conversation? And if not, if you think you could have done better, then you could probably do better now. And it's not just boy, I stayed away from people, so I'm kind of glad. It's not even just for your own self, you know, like think about, you know, what you've done to put other people at risk, you know, and look, and just because you may have not been acting optimally before, it doesn't mean you can't change that. You know, it's really better late than never. And these are actually some of the stories that I kind of like to tell. Is there's a guy that I know on Facebook who's like, he's actually a father of a kid I coach, and for like 3 weeks he was just like that guy, like I just want to drink, I just want this, I can't believe you could shut down the government, but don't shut down my bars, how dare you, you know, like he's just that guy, right? And after weeks and weeks, he finally posted something on there that was like, you know, semi-reasonable, that like you could tell he finally got it. So yeah, I would wish that he wasn't like an idiot before, but you know what? Better to take care of your shit now than never. Okay, so that's all I have to say is think about everything you're doing, and with respect to not only how it's affecting you, but how it's affecting everybody else.
Absolutely, and I think it's a good time, and so hopefully people feel somewhat united instead of divided by this. I don't even want to. I'm done with even writing back to people who say, you know what, hopefully you're right, and the death toll doesn't get too crazy.
Yep.
No matter what, it doesn't matter. Whenever anybody who says that, the thing that I'm having a hard time with are the people who keep saying, well, how many more people die of this, and this. That's not the point. That is not the point of this conversation. If we could stop, you know, anyone from committing suicide ever by staying inside for 2 weeks, even though I know I'm not going to commit suicide, I would do that. If we knew it would stop everyone else, why wouldn't we stop something that just might be bad and, well, actually, no, is unquestionably bad, and it might be really bad? Why don't we just take the safe way out for ourselves, for our future, everything, and just, you know, stay inside for a little longer? It's not the worst thing in the world. You're not going to lose your job in most cases, by the way, unless it's certain types of jobs that you actually have to do. But most of the people, almost every company has employed them.
Hey, I'm probably going to tweet this, by the way, but just because there's going to be a hell of a lot more people probably listening to my tweets than ever viewing this. But Bobby, maybe you could think about this too, if you know anybody that's in this position. One thing that I found out I was looking at the stimulus bill, and you know the checks that were available to some people that, you know, that qualify. One interesting little side thing about that, which I read, was that if you have your address, and not your address, if you have your bank account on file with the IRS for direct deposit, and some people do, some people don't, then you're going to get paid really quickly. But what I heard is that if you don't have your bank address, your banking information on file with the IRS, it could take 4 months to get your check. We're really prioritizing the electronic transfers over the checks. So if you know anybody that's in that position, it's probably a good idea to have them go through the steps, whatever those are. I don't have the link in front of me.
Sure.
To do that, because I know there are people that are in need, are going to be waiting for that money, and you know, some people are not very sophisticated. They don't know that they need to do stuff like that, and it's you know, I just figured I would throw that out there.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, man. I appreciate that. I think it's a good reminder, because I do think that's important.
All right. Hey, look, Bobby, if you're deep in something, seriously, just ping me. Okay.
Okay, I will. I should have done it yesterday, but you know me, I get distracted when I got a bunch of tables going on.
Yeah, I got you.
All right, bud. Hey, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there. For Sheets, I'm Bobby. We'll see you tomorrow.